You're listening to The Riff, a podcast by North Point Church. There's a lot more to the Christian journey than what can be presented in a 30-minute time slot from a stage on Sunday morning. Our host and lead pastor, Jeremy Johnson, highlights the vision of North Point Church and the Christian journey through stories, interviews, and unfiltered faith ramblings. We hope the conversations will help you engage in how faith interacts with your life. I think we're ready. Let's go for it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. I got a chance to sit down with Jon Martz. He's our brand new campus pastor at our brand new campus in Republic. If you haven't met Jon, I know you're going to enjoy looking at a glimpse into his journey, as well as you're going to catch some passion of what God's doing right here at North Point in this new season. And so thanks so much for leaning in during this time. Let's dive into this conversation as we talk all things Republic and all things what God's doing through Jon and his team. Well, welcome to another episode of The Riff. I can't believe we're still doing this. And man, I am wildly surprised. Actually very excited about this platform. It's turned into an opportunity for us to talk about the life of North Pointers, different things that are important to the mission of North Point, and different things coming up in North Point. And today I want to interview and introduce someone we're going to interview today that many of you who are listening know because Jon has been around North Point for many years, over 7 years, I think, in a staff capacity. But I want to introduce our brand new Republic campus pastor, Jon Martz. So Jon, meet our listening audience.
Wow, long-time listener, first-time caller. So I am excited to be on. I think I've hit every episode. So
that's a
biggest fan.
That's
maybe
awesome. I'm blushing. So hey, tell us a little bit about you. Like how did you make your way to North Point? I said you've been on the team, 7 years or so. Kind of tell us a little bit about kind of your background and then your involvement with North Point for those who want a quick catch up on Martz 101.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a suburb of Kansas City, and my dad was a pastor. He's been at the church for almost 25 years now.
Wow.
And I think everybody at that church would always come up and ask me, hey, do you want to be a pastor like your dad? And I said, absolutely not. That sounds awful. I'm so scared of public speaking that sounds not good. And another thing is that I don't know. I want to make more money. So as a kid, people would ask me that, and I'm like, this does not sound good. You're mixing one of my biggest fears with not a lot of money. So I would tell everybody, no, I don't want to follow that route. And I was pretty solid in it. I always said two things growing up. I don't want to be a pastor, and I don't want to go to this small Christian school in Springfield called Evangel University. So my mom went to Evangel, and my dad went to CBC, which is now combined into Evangel, kind of the same school. So I was like, I don't want to follow the footsteps of my parents. I want to be my own person, doing my own thing. And it's just so funny because I ended up at Evangel University, and but I was studying music. So that was kind of my I'm not going to be a pastor type of deal right there.
What did you think? Like, so majoring in music?
Majoring in music. So
what were you thinking? Like you were going to be a conductor, like not the train type, but like
close. No, I studied music technology and music business. So what I wanted to do was record and go into business management for artists. So fast forward to my junior year, and I had some, here's the deal about a Christian college. If you don't get walked out of your faith a couple times, I don't know if you did it right. So at Evangel, I had some angst. I don't know if it was just teenage angst, but had some problems with church in general. Obviously, I grew up in it. You see the good, the bad, the ugly. And so I was like, man, I don't know if I want church to be a part of my life. Again, still the whole pastor thing, I was pretty against. And so, but I was like, I want to do artist management. So I actually take an internship up in Seattle, and my sister lived there at the time. So I was going to stay with her, and I was going to work with this company called Sleepless Collective. So They were like an artist management firm, and they sold gear and everything. I was like, this seems like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, you know what? If this goes well, I'm not coming back for my senior year.
So you spent a summer in Seattle.
Summer in Seattle.
The home of Nirvana, Soundgarden. Come on.
I was like, this is incredible, and I'm so excited. This
and
is like
Jeremy.
everything
It's
I
the
want.
home of Jeremy, too.
Didn't know he was there. Didn't know Jeremy yet. Okay. But I go out there, and the very first night, I meet the owner of Sleepless Collective at this show, and he told me that he sold the company, and he's moving to New York. And I went out to Seattle for this specifically. So he introduced me to who he sold it for, but all the artists had pulled and everything. So they had I did 4 hours of work a week in Seattle. So I had nothing. I had nowhere to go. I stayed in this tiny little apartment as my sister worked nights. And it was just a weird experience. You get very lonely. You get very deep in your own thoughts. And that was an opportunity where I didn't really talk to anybody. I'd go to Barnes & Noble. I'd ride the bus, go to Barnes & Noble and read a book all day just because I'm I just need to be around people even though I'm not going to talk to any of them.
And you didn't want to buy the book,
and
apparently.
I didn't have any money either. So it was one of those weird times. But what I remember is I was kind of against church. It wasn't something I was for. I didn't know if I wanted a part of my life. I believed in God, but it was funny because there was one church that I was able to walk to on Sundays because I knew I'd get some people interaction. These guys have to talk to me. It's kind of part of their job. So I go and I walk to this church every Sunday, and I'm just I'd stay for both services, and I just cry during the worship, and I'm I don't even know what's going on in my heart, in my life, but it's so crazy because then I had a buddy, his name's Colton, and he had just started interning at North Point, and he had told me, dude, you gotta check out North Point, when you come back, and I'm yeah, I'm definitely coming back now. So I come back for my senior year. I check out North Point, and I remember sitting in one of your services, and I hear you say, what happens inside these four walls is not nearly as important as what happens outside these four walls. And I never heard something like that in a service. Everything I had kind of heard was what's the return on investment if we do, this Easter egg hunt or this, whatever. And I was so I don't know if this is true. But I loved hearing that. And so I hopped on. You guys had a serve event that next day. Little did I know, my wife was actually there, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I go to this serve event, and it's so crazy because I realized quickly, all these things that I was angry about the church about was actually all these things I was angry about myself with. So it was I never served anybody around me. And I was the church never serves anybody. I'm well, neither had I.
Okay, time out. You just went therapy on me. So that's such an eye-opening, I believe, phrase you just said, because sometimes we have this tendency to blame the church because the church is an impersonal ideology for the things that personal people, and a lot of us have disappointment with the church, but really we have disappointment with people, or we are frustrated with the church, but we are part of that church. So you had this epiphany that it's you needed to serve.
Yes. So I needed to change in all reality. And so, man, that kept me at North Point. I definitely wasn't, I probably wasn't living the type of lifestyle you'd be man, this is a Christ follower. It was one of those where I was still definitely searching and trying to figure out where I land in everything, deciding who I wanted to be and what that looked like. But got to do that here for about a year.
So you got involved right away. I mean, my understanding is, didn't you jump into, was it production or how did you get connected?
Yeah, so I actually did an internship with Justin, Glenn. So the very first week I came, you guys did a cover of Radioactive, and I was man, that's so cool. I'd never heard a church do this, and it sounded really good. It was better production than I learned in my 4 years of college. So I was maybe I can learn from these guys. So I start doing an internship with Justin and just get plugged in with the team. And then after about a year, I end up getting hired at North Point to do production. And it was not all rainbows and butterflies when I first started. There's
a reason we pay you. Because it's not always going to feel like something you do for free.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget. I was 4 weeks into working at North Point. This was 7.5 years ago now. But I was 4 weeks in, and we had gotten a new console at our campus, and there's a lot of things that were on my mind that Sunday morning. And we couldn't get our screen to work, and we're a video venue campus. So it's
Screen's
either
important?
screen's a little important, or we're just listening to a podcast of Jeremy, and that's okay, because podcasts are great, right? So
You're preaching to the choir
it
here.
wasn't going to be a great experience. So we finally got the screen working about 5 minutes in. But
honestly, the first 5 minutes, I'm just warming up. So
it was,
no content.
At the end, we do worship, no lyrics, and then it gets working, But what I forgot to do was we'd run haze and we'd do lights, and I forgot to turn off our fire alarms. So at that moment, the fire alarms start going off. Think about this. Think about being at church this Sunday, and the fire alarms go off. People started evacuating the building.
Oh,
all right?
how insensitive.
During worship. And I can't be like, no, hey, seriously, guys, it's just a test. Don't worry about it. It's just the haze in the room. But it was probably my most embarrassing
How are you
moment
still
ever.
working
right?
here?
So it's, it's crazy, but I go on vacation the next week, and the whole time I'm on vacation, I'm like,
was it vacation or probation?
It was one of those where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm getting fired. But it's crazy because, Justin texted me on that Thursday of my vacation. It was like, hey, can you come in at 9? And we just want to meet up with you. And I'm like, here it is. Yeah. I'm getting canned. 'Cause I don't know what I'm doing. There's so many things. And I'll never forget, Justin sits me down, and we start talking about all these different things and a lot of life stuff. Didn't really know where I was at in my faith, which is wild. It's so cool that I could get hired to do production at North Point, and I was still searching in my faith and figuring out where I was at. Now, you didn't slap a microphone on me and let me speak on Sunday, but it was like, man, I think I believe in God. I don't know where I stand with that. I don't know how to live this out. I don't know what spiritual muscles to flex and how to do this. But Justin sat me down and we walked through a lot of relational stuff. I was in a relationship that wasn't super God honoring. There's a lot of things there to unpack that we unpacked, that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Spiritually, I don't know what I'm doing. Professionally, I really don't know what I'm doing, obviously.
Not even keeping him in the building during worship.
Right? It's so it was a lot of stuff there that we walked through. And I'll never forget, we kind of go through the whole process, and Justin kind of gives me some steps, and he's like, here's the deal. I don't want to fire you. We love you. We care about you. We know you, and we want to see you get healthy if that's what you want. And I'm like, I want nothing more than that. Wow. They're like, okay, so we're going to tell your campus pastor, we're going to tell Jeremy about all this stuff, and just get you on a spot where, I don't want to use the word accountability because that's not what it was, but we want to resource you in some areas where if you want to grow, we want you to grow. And it was a lot of stuff after that, of quick calls of, okay, I know this relationship isn't God honoring, and there's a lot of things. Okay, I need to break up with my girlfriend. Justin suggested counseling, and I'm like, that's the stupidest thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with me. And then I went to counseling. I was like, this is amazing, and my gosh, there's so much wrong with that I just needed to work through. I didn't even realize it's not wrong, but it was just these habits I had built up that I'm like, man, this is so helpful to walk through. And then we had an event the next day after all this had kind of gone down. And I was at this event, and I was like, man, I don't know if people still want me working here. Nobody probably wants me here. This is a weird spot. I don't know if you've ever felt that way at North Point. You're just or at church in general. I feel like nobody wants me here, but I'll never forget. It was at the end of the night. We were cleaning everything up. I think it was called Summer Splash. It was a long time ago. But Jeremy, you came up to me and you looked me in the eyes and you said, hey man, I don't know if you remember this, but you're like, I heard everything that happened, and I just want to let you know I'm cheering you on through this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the two people that gave me a shot in ministry, Justin and Jeremy, the two people that I probably embarrassed them the most, just the way I professionally acted, personally acted, in so many ways. And these are the two people that are giving me the most amount of grace. That stuck with me, and it stuck with me over the past 7 years as I've led in IT groups, young adults, every time that I get to sit down with a couple or I get to sit down with an individual that's walking through these different problems, whether that be spiritually or physically or relationally or all these areas, like I get to be that person now that I remember my story and I get to transfer that to theirs to be like, hey, like this is an opportunity for you to get health if you want it. I want to continue to resource you. I want to walk through this with you.
Right.
And I get an opportunity to cheer them on. And like that has been such a monumental piece for me. And it's been the story of North Point over and over and over again. I don't want to say it's a church of, second chances. That's not it. It's a church where we're going to continue to resource you in all the ways that we can because that's a part of our story. And that's always stuck with me when it comes to leading and growing and learning. And I'm just thankful to be in this room with people that have done that with me. And hopefully I get to do that with people here at North Point. So,
well, I mean, one of the things that we want to do is we want to resource people, whether it's their first time on a weekend with us or whether it's a staff person. We want to resource them for their next step. We always harp on next steps because I think that's what we all have. And one of the things that as I hear your telling of the story, I feel like what the key was, a lot of people are offered resources. And so we always say, let's hold people's hands, but not wipe their bottom, right? And it's got to be in there. We want to help people if they want to take a step. But if they're saying, I'm not going to take any steps, if I'm going to grow, you have to do it all. It's just not going to work. And one of my favorite things about you're committed, you're growing, and none of us are perfect, but we want to lead from health. And whether it was a time in your season where you didn't feel like you were leading from health or you weren't leading from health, but that you were committed to getting there and taking the road. And I got to tell you, you are a healthy leader and you've impacted so many people, uniquely in the role of young adults. You've had awesome opportunity to build teams, and your team has had a big impact in the lives of so many young adults. And we're launching Republic. I think I've said Joplin in every setting. So if I didn't say that at least once on a podcast, then I'm not being fair
I
to the
keep
podcast.
saying I'm willing to go wherever you send me. So I mean,
but okay. So when we launch Republic, right away, those of us who are thinking about, like Justin and I specifically thinking about, okay, who might God have been preparing to be the lead for this campus? The reason why we had a conversation with you so early in the process was what we see in you is a healthy leader, and now you have a healthy family. You're married with 2 kids. You did marry that gal from
I did. So yes, we've got 2 kids. We got Beckham, who just turned 3, and then we've got Sloan, who's almost 3 months.
You married the pride of Ash Grove. Is that true,
absolutely.
Mel? Right?
Yep.
So, and we just know that, man, you're reflecting, the type of message of Jesus that we want to continue to reflect. And as we look at Republic, we think, man, there's so many people there who, for whatever reason, still aren't connected. About 50% of the Republic area, they're not connected to church. And there's some great churches there. There just seem to be room for another. And as we launch this through the pop-up and we see, man, we have a lot of North Pointers out there who their friends and family might not come with them to North Point, so they might not go anywhere. This might be an opportunity to gauge that influence. For us, we thought, man, we had to have that conversation. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, when we start approaching you with, is there a chance Republic campus pastor might be your next step? How did that sound? How did you get to the spot where you said, I'm in?
Yeah, I think the immediate thought was no. I'm not interested. I got such an awesome opportunity with young adults and being able to be on the ground floor of that. It gives you a different sense of ownership, and watching young adults and being a part of that process I think that started about 4 years ago. Man, I just watched all the times that God's hand was on that ministry and all the times that it should have failed, but it didn't. And I thought back to those and I'm like, those are so stinking incredible. And I'm like, I love what I do. And I love that I got to be a part of that process. So I want to continue doing that. But it's crazy. The more we had conversations and talked about that, the more I looked in my prayer life and the things that I was praying for. And one of them was just that I'm so comfortable. I'm so comfortable in all the areas of my life, whether that be socially, I like my friends, financially, I'm okay. Like there's all these areas. Spiritually, I'm good. And like when you say that, it's like, oh man, I don't think I am good. Like I think that I'm pretty comfortable. And one of those things I prayed, I was like, God, I pray that I could be uncomfortable, but I'm not going to choose it. So Lord, I pray that there's an opportunity for that and that happens. And that was scary. But when I looked back at my, my notes, when I prayed that, I was like, man, I think, what if Republic is that? And, I looked at all the times that God's hand was on this young adult ministry as I got to be on the ground floor of that. I'm like, what? Like, those were miracles. And how do you steward a miracle? You believe for more miracles. And I think that when it comes to Republic, and I'm like, man, just getting to be a part of the ground floor. And there's so many North Pointers that get to be a part of the ground floor of this as we launch. And so this is all of our journey. This is all of our story to say, I believe that there's going to be so many things that happen that honestly should probably shut us down and it won't work. But I know God's hand is on this, and I know that he's pushing this forward. And this is from him, not from us. And we're going to work hard and we're going to put forth our best effort. But at the end of the day, it's on him. And I've had a couple interactions already that I'm like, oh, this just solidifies why we need to be there. And one of them I've shared in one of our interest meetings is the story of Nick. And so I went and I played golf at Island Green in Republic. And if I've already lost you, by the way, I'm not a golfer. If you watch me play golf, you wouldn't think I played. So we're probably at the same level.
Did you meet him at a different fairway when you were fighting your ball?
Yes,
Is that
exactly.
how?
Exactly. No, so I went alone. And when you go alone, if it's a busy day, sometimes you get paired up.
Who goes alone?
I don't want anybody to see me play. I mean, really, that's kind of it. I don't,
This is actually part of your process of praying over Republic, though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. So I go to play golf. I get paired up with this guy, Nick, who, I'm just going through the questions. And I'm like, hey, how long have you been here in Republic? He's like, this is my first day. I'm like, what? So yeah, I guess he just moved there. And I was like, what brought you here? And he tells me the story of meeting this girl in Montana on the ski slopes, which is
as you
do 3 months ago. And they kept talking. He lives in Memphis. She lives in Montana. She got a job in Republic, Missouri. So she moved out to Republic. And they've known each other for 3 months. And Nick is like, that is not that far from Memphis. So you know what? I've got a remote job. I'm going to move over to Republic, Missouri. We're going to live together. We're moving together, which I'm like, I don't know if I'd advise that. Okay. That's pretty quick. That's 3 months of knowing somebody, not even in person. All right. Mainly online. You met, I'm like, they probably FaceTime, but I'm like, that's okay. So, then he's like, asked me, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, well, we're launching a church here. And so I'm like, I don't want to be offensive, but I'm like, are you religious at all or anything? And he said, well, I was in youth as a student when I was a senior in high school. And I got pretty plugged into this youth group. It was great. I started dating a girl there. And then once I hit my college years, my freshman year, I decided to rush a frat. And I got a call from my youth pastor that said, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. This is the worst thing you could do. These guys are only going to bring you further away from God. And then his girlfriend broke up with him. His dog probably died. I don't know. But all these things. And then he's like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. He spends his 4 years in school and then graduates and now is living in Memphis. So not a great church background, which I'm like, I hate that for you. And I can't be that guy that's just like, well, the church we're launching is different. And, I'm like, I don't know. God, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how to do this. I feel weird inviting them to, I don't want to cram religion down his throat because it seems like that's the way it's been and then it's been not received well. And so it's funny. We just exchanged numbers because I'm like, dude, you don't know anybody here in Republic. And
and I apparently golf alone.
And I have no friends. So I'm like, dude, let's hang out. And so a couple months later, or a month later, really, we grab lunch and we're talking through things. And he asked me, he's like, when does the church launch? And I'm like, well, it's already launched. Okay, you can come to Nixa or Springfield or the Dream Center campus. I'm like, any one of these is good. But he's like, no, when's the one in Republic launch?
Wow.
And I'm talking September 19th. And he's like, me and my girlfriend will be there. But I'm really, honestly, she's probably going to be his wife whenever they show up. They move really quick. So I'm not sure, but no, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't have even imagined that story. And then, I talked to another guy who's like 71 years old, and he's grown up super religious in church, knows all the answers, and then had kind of a midlife crisis of sorts of like, I'm not for sure what I believe and all these things. And he's kind of coming back. And I'm like, you've got this 24-year-old guy who's unchurched, and you've got this 71-year-old guy who, his name's Tim, who's like searching for how God fits into his life now and what that looks like. And I'm like, what's crazy is we're going into this series called Misfits.
Right.
And you've got these two polar opposite dudes who are like, I'm going to be here on September 19th in Republic. And I'm like, I don't know how you're going to bridge this message, but I am so excited for Nick and Tim to like hear about God, experience God. And I'm so excited for Republic Campus to be able to remove as many obstacles as possible for them to be able to experience Jesus. So it's just a unique season, but there's been a lot of things that have clarified in my mind of like, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
So
I have a couple of questions that jump out to me. One is I've shared this several times, even in weekend services, is we are not launching a Republic campus so that we have a more convenient place for North Pointers to attend. What does that mean to you? Why do you think that's important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to the strategy of North Point, right? Our goal is to help people find Jesus and follow Jesus. And you've talked about the bean analogy of like, dude, we don't just need to be a cooler church for already church people.
Right.
Like when I think about rolling into the Republic campus, I'm not like, man, I really hope the lights are sweet. Man, I really hope the audio just sounds crystal clear, which I
hope
do.
The haze is so thick we have a fire alarm.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think that's great. But when somebody's coming in and they're struggling with their marriage, they don't need a cool light show. And when somebody's coming in and their kid passed away, I'm like, they don't care.
Right.
And when I think about Republic, and I'm like, man, I don't care if 1,000 people show up. I'm like, if Nick and Tim are there, this thing worked. It did.
Right.
And I'm like, if a life gets changed, is that worth however much money and resources and time? Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. And I believe there's going to be more than one. Yeah. But I'm like, oh man, a more convenient place for North Pointers to attend. Wah wah. Like that is not exciting or encouraging. I'm like, we could watch online. That's actually the most convenient place. But I'm like, I think that there's right now. I'm like, if we're talking about the mission, a safe place to find and follow Jesus, like I believe that a service in Republic is our best shot at getting people who aren't churched, who need to find Jesus, who need to follow Jesus, to come and sit down there. And I like if we find a better way, and that's not a service on a Sunday, I believe that we'll do that. Like I believe your heart, you'll be like, hey, we need to, whatever that is, that if that's koozies for Christ and we need to go to the beach and that's, what we do, cool. I've always thought about that ministry would be really cool. All right, handing out koozies,
I'm into like magic shows for the Messiah. I love magic, but I
love it.
So, we'll do whatever.
Exactly. And I'm like, I believe our best shot though is just encouraging service on Sunday mornings where we can help people find Jesus and follow Jesus.
And we have dozens and dozens, over 100 of North Pointers who have said, I want to help not just attend the Republic campus. I want to help make this an experience for those who come in. Now, one of my last thoughts is this, as you pray about this, think about this, and at least as we're recording this, we're right about to launch the Republic campus. If you think about 5 years from now, what do you envision this campus doing? As you reflect 5 years from now, what needs to happen for you to be like, man, this was it?
I get a little emotional thinking about it just because I think about my past, and I think about the part that North Point's already played in that. And I think about my wife who got saved at North Point like 10 years ago. And I think about my kids who have grown up in North Point.
And will get saved maybe one day. Come on, Beckham.
Hope so. All right. And that's why I believe, our kids ministry is awesome. Okay. It matters. And you serving there matters. Okay. Because I'm like, personal. All right. And I think about my kids getting, the experiences that I got and being able to filter those and process those. And what does that look like in their life? I think about my journey and just what a difference that's made in the spiritual process of my life and where I'm going and what I want to do and what I've really given my life toward. And there's just no greater feeling. And so I think through and I'm like, I bet there's going to be a bunch of Jon Martz's walking through the door that don't know where they're at spiritually, relationally. They've never seen a healthy relationship, let alone a spiritual one. They're walking in. There's going to be people who are contemplating suicide. There's going to be people who walk in, and if they don't hear an encouraging message, they're going to leave and numb themselves with whatever the world tells them. Yeah. And I'm like, man, if we can be that place that people walk in and we remove every obstacle as possible for them to be able to experience Jesus, like that's going to be a win. And I already see it being a win. So I'm like 5 years from now, who knows? Like, dude, I don't know. But I'm like, I think if you just make that personal of remembering your journey, whether you're a North Pointer or not, I think we can all remember some of our story, whatever that looks like, and being like, I know there's people like me that are walking through the doors today, and we'll walk through 919, we'll walk through the next week and the next week and the next week, and man, taking that a week at a time and being like, we're going to celebrate everybody that walks through the doors today because it matters. And these people are searching for something, and it's not that we have the answer. That's not the goal, but it's to provide that experience where they get to see Jesus. At the end of the day, people don't show up for us. They don't show up because there's North Point on the logo. I know Jeremy's funny, but I'm like, that only holds you for so long, okay? But I'm like, there is something bigger than that, and just getting to be able to show people Jesus, it is always worth it. So, long story short, I know I made that a little muddy, but 5 years, man, I don't know. But now I already see it making a huge impact on my family and those around me.
I think marriages will look different. I think Christmas cards will look different. I think parenting will look different. I think eternity will be bigger because of you, because of the volunteers. And so if you're a North Pointer listening and you're going out to Republic, game on. Let's do this. Let's create an experience. Time to dive in and serve on this team, this passion. And we're going to see our friends and family shaped because of what you're doing. If you're a North Pointer who's not part of Republic and you helped invest in this, thank you. You did your part, played your part so that we can launch this campus. And wherever you're at in the North Point, community, I just really believe that together we can accomplish so much more. So let's lean into Jesus. Let's absorb him, take the next steps to become more like him, reflect him, and I think we'll have an attractive relationship, an attractive experience for people to respond to Jesus. So, Martz, I'm so thankful for you, for your journey. I'm so thankful you said yes. I have no doubt this is in the cards, that God has done, God has prepared you for this. God has brought you to North Point for such a time as this. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. We'll do what we can do. We know he'll do what he can do, and excited to see what happens. So let's continue to be praying what God is starting. He'll be faithful to bring to completion there, that we'll continue to see awesome impact, eternity change in the lives of people. Let's bring wholeness to every area of our brokenness. So Martz, thanks for leading the charge. Let's see what happens, huh?
Let's do this.
Come on. Thanks so much for joining us and listening to us today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. Submit a question for the podcast at northpointchurch.tv/podcast. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.